Hello everybody, my name is James Murua and we're talking books today with Radana Culture.
Hey, niaje wase, Radana Culture is back bigger and badder than ever. So this time we're doing it a bit differently. We've always been talking about, the musicians and all that. And now we're spreading it out to talk to new people. Whether we are talking about literature, we're talking about movies, theater, film, all that. We're going to be doing all that for you guys. Now today, I have someone very special to me. You may spot the family resemblance. This is my big bro. His name is James Murua. Yes, for those guys who talk, there are two Muruas in this town, and I may be the other one, he may be the other one. But the fact is, he's not here today because he's my bro. Well, obviously he's here because he's my bro. But the reason why we are talking today is because James actually owns the biggest literature blog on the continent of Africa. I had to say literature slowly because Chida ya matamuchi hapa na pale. But he owns the biggest literature blog on the continent, which is pretty well regarded, I think, beyond the continent. People do refer to it as some sort of serious source for information about the continent's literature scene. Silvio?
Yeah.
All right, cool. So, I know him all my life, but since some of you may not know him, I'll just ask him to start us off with a little bit, okay? So, right now, you're very deeply immersed in all this stuff. We can see the books and everything. But if you just take it a step back, I know you didn't start off being this literature reviewer that you are now. You've had a bit of a journey that took you from, the college days to who you are now to the James Murua that I think is pretty well known in the market now. Just kijuju, what was that small journey that took you from being that James to the James you have sitting here with all these books and all that?
I haven't written books.
No, with all these books, man.
Oh yes, I just have to.
Guys, these are books.
I have to clarify. So what I did was, I've always had an interest in the computers and the internet. Mm-hmm. When I was in my 20s, I had a website. I had a space on GeoCities, which was like a platform where you could get it was like a suburb where you get a house in a neighborhood, and I had a little place in that platform, and I was doing okay. Then I left and I actually did some work in media. I worked for the Standard as one of their webmasters for a short period. I left the country, I came back. And when I was back home, I was talking about blogging to many people.
Yeah.
But nobody really seemed to understand what I was saying, because blogging is you're telling your story about yourself or something that you have an interest in. Mm-hmm. But why would anybody care? It
wasn't a thing then.
Yeah, nobody, why would I care that you went to have a drink at the carnival and then you tell me about it? Tell me, why do I need to read it?
Yeah.
So in 2006, I actually registered a website, a blog called nairobyliving.com. Mm-hmm. And at the time, what I was doing was I was covering the art scene. Mm-hmm. And of course, at that time, there was a bit of a buzz in the art scene. Mm-hmm. There was Kwani, which was doing a lot of events.
That's Binyavanga Wainaina's baby.
Yes. Yeah. She was doing a lot of stuff with Kwani. There was Wapi, Words and Pictures.
Wow, I forgot about that one.
Yes, I was actually the first person to do a story about Wapi.
Okay.
There were a lot of little arts initiatives, open mics, and I was actually doing a lot of stories around that.
Yeah.
And I was enjoying myself, going to all these open mics, doing all this work, until in 2007, at the beginning, I got a call from a new newspaper that was coming on the scene called Nairobi Star at the time. And they gave me a newspaper column.
Yeah.
And my job was to just give you I was actually writing satire. I wasn't doing art reporting.
Yeah.
It was a satire column because my editor at the time didn't want to have a replication on what I was doing online. She wanted something different.
Okay.
So what I did with that column was I'd do satire, do interesting observations from Nairobi, and then they included a pub review.
Yeah.
And I did that for, yes, I did that.
I remember the pub reviews.
Yes, I reviewed bars for 9 years. And in that period, when I was there for that 9 years, I actually learned how to write. Because before I just used to write things and I'm not sure what I was doing.
Yeah.
I learned how to write for newspapers. I learned how to read better and I started writing more. So what happened in 2013, I'd been there for a few years. Somebody asked me, what do you do? I'm like, no, I'm a newspaper editor. And I also have a column in the same newspaper. And he said, no, that's your Ugali writing. Where's your writing?
Okay.
And I was like, actually, because I'd abandoned my old blog because I was now in a respectable job. I'll do my thing.
Yes.
So I said, okay, let me just register my domain. And I registered as jamesmurua.com. And the reason I registered that way is that I knew that if the blog I was interested in writing about, if I lost interest, I'd keep maintaining it. I'd just put my CV and my own things on that website if it didn't work out.
Yeah.
The genre I decided to pick was African literature.
Okay.
Because I'd gone online and I'd seen that the people who were doing African literature were they were few. Or people used to come and go. They do like 2 or 3 months of doing this project and then they move on.
They get tired.
Yes.
And do something else.
They're like, no, there's no money here. There's nothing. So they 2 or 3 weeks, somebody does a couple of blogs. After 3 months, they move on. So I said, let me try that space because it looks like there's a space. And I knew writers, and I'm like, there's a thing happening.
Yeah.
So I started writing in this space. So from 2013 to 2016, it was a hobby. I just post once every day or two.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even that keen. I just copy and paste things from the internet.
Yeah.
In 2016, I lost my job at the newspaper, and I had to do something.
Yeah.
So I said, you know what? This is actually a space that's interesting, and I decided to focus now, laser focus on it.
Yes.
So from that period in 2016 to now, this is 5 years now.
Yes, 5 years. Yeah.
It's basically built to be one of the most important archives of African literature in the world. The site has 2,100 posts as of now, like
2,100 posts in the last 5 years.
No, I mean it's all together.
Yeah.
But a majority of them came in that last 5 years.
Okay.
And apart from that, one of the things I discovered was when I used to go for events, I'd be sitting at these events, and sometimes I don't want to report.
Yeah.
Because you're sitting, you want to watch what they're saying.
Yes.
So what I did, I started grabbing my phone and recording some of these events on my phone. And it was just for reference.
Yes.
Then I realized, listen, this stuff will just, I might lose my phone. I might
delete it.
Delete it. So what I did, everybody has a YouTube.
Yeah.
You know that everybody has YouTube.
Yes.
As long as you have Gmail, you have YouTube.
Yes.
So I started posting those videos on my YouTube.
Yeah.
And then somehow it actually became the biggest blog on African literature. So if you want to look on African literature, I probably have the most non-institutional videos on African literature in the world.
When you're saying non-institutional,
so we have people like the Library of Congress in the US. They have videos where they get writers come and they invite them, and it's organizations. It's like companies. Some universities do these things.
Yes.
So those are institutions. They have institutional support. They have like professional cameras.
I get you.
So for those institutional kind of spaces, you'd expect them to have more.
Yes.
But even for a lot of them, I have more content on my YouTube than a lot of those organizations. Then lastly,
yes.
In 2018, I set up a podcast. And the plan had been, because I saw podcasting was growing, and there was no one who was like doing the same thing for writers that I wanted. So I set up a podcast, and this is the 3rd year. Last year I kind of had, with the pandemic, it became difficult for me to do it. But in December I got a couple of partners, and I'm doing it, and so it's a podcast, which is a video podcast, and I also have it goes to audio.
Okay.
So that's the range of the things I'm doing.
So the question is, from 5 years ago to now, where you are, you've gone from what I would call a very humble start to your blogs and your sites to award-winning stuff. So funny thing, when he won this award, I don't think there was anybody else who was really in the running for this particular one. This was what?
The Sana Theatre Awards?
Yeah, this is Sana Theatre Awards. Huh?
Yeah. So the thing that happened with this award is there were other people who were nominated, but I was the only one nominated for writing for African literature.
Ah, okay.
So the judging committee decided that they recognize the work I was doing, bringing African literature to the forefront. So how do I go from?
Yeah, how do you go from this small to this?
I mean, there's a lot of like focus. You just need to be focused. I know that, for instance, a majority of the stuff I did happened in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
And that was just, you have to be following the writing community. You have to be on the mailing list of every publisher, every literary festival.
Yes.
And sometimes you don't even, there are no mailing lists. So you have to just follow them, so follow the social media. And you have to like make a conscious effort to follow everyone. And that's a lot of work. You don't just build a name overnight. I had some of the people who talked to me, I did a story about them 2 years ago.
Wow.
And that's been like, yeah, you did actually a very nice story about my event. And a lot of this, the reason why you're actually contributing, you're not trying to say, guys, give me money, or yeah, now that I've done this, you need to support me. I have had a long, consistent period of doing this work.
Yes.
Such that when I actually set up a Patreon, people are happy to like, no, we like the work you're doing.
Yeah.
We're gonna give you a few shillings every month. Or when I ask writers if they would be willing to be on my podcast, they recognize the work I do. So it's about building daily. It's a lot of work, but it's also very, very fulfilling, because at the end of the day, I know a lot of people say at the end of the day, in the next 10 or 15 years, we're building the archives for the people who will be coming and saying, yeah, this is what writers used to do. They didn't just used to go online and tweet, yeah, I have writer's blog. Yeah, writers used to they're doing a lot of things. I just wanted I forgot to mention that my focus initially was African writing only. But in 2020, when George Floyd was killed,
yes,
I realized that African literature has a problem on the continent, but also black writers from the diaspora have also very small space as well. So you find like in Britain, I think it's only 1% of people who are writers.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the US is also small numbers. I said, I'll just incorporate them. So it's also basically all black writers, all African writers. That's something I forgot to mention. Now,
if I could ask this question, because for me, it's always been a thing. If you were looking at where, like reading came from. I mean, there was a time when the cool thing was to read books. What do? I read books. I think that was the 70s, 80s, whatever, 90s. But nowadays, people have options. I mean, you don't have to look at a static piece of paper. And we're being overtaken by, the social media thing. Tweet crazy people like yourself. The question I just want to ask is, from where we've come from to where we are, do people still read? I mean, is reading a thing now? Did it ever go away? Is it coming back?
Contrary to popular belief,
yes,
people are reading.
Really?
People are reading. I know there's an idea people say, like, and it's a thing I hate when people say there's a literary desert somewhere, they're hiding things from Africans or black people. Those things irritate me, because people are reading. For the last 5 or 10 years, until the pandemic,
yeah,
if you're doing a book launch, let's say at the Goethe or at the National Theatre, it's very common you'll have like 50 people. I mean, those events, they don't have like no people.
Yeah.
People are reading. I mean, in fact, in Kenya, people are reading like crazy. That's why, for instance, in the last couple of years, the pirates have jumped onto this thing.
People are pirating books now?
Yes, pirates are really, really making a killing, because...
Really?
Yes. What's happened is, because there's a huge thirst for these kind of books, and let's say, for you to go through the normal processes of doing books, and you find that the price of the book will be a bit higher.
Yeah.
The pirate will just go to River Road and just photocopy or something, and he'll sell it for 200 or 300 or something. It's basically photocopies.
I did not know that.
Yeah, I mean, right now on Instagram, they're the trending. I think they left. I think they used to be the Quail guys or something.
Yeah.
Then now it's ebooks.
The same guys. Okay. I mean, I have been seeing like the PDF versions of everything.
Yeah, that's the trend now.
Okay.
Because people are reading. People are actually reading. It's just that there's a perception thing where people say that we're not reading because somebody said it in the 50s, and then it became I don't know. Somebody said it's a prophecy.
That people will not be reading.
No, people are reading.
But okay, then let me ask it this way. First of all, before I go and answer, So what are people reading? I mean, are they reading? Because I mean, I'm looking at your collection here. I mean, there's a lot of African books. What are people reading?
Okay,
like in this town of ours. Before we even go further on that.
So personally, I like reading fiction. I read. I'm just learning to read poetry. I'm not great, but I'm starting to learn to read poetry. And I like reading creative nonfiction. So we're talking biographies, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge fan of reading like nonfiction, like Who Moved My Cheese and the
various self-help books.
Yeah, the monk who sold his Ferrari.
Yes.
I don't read that kind of stuff. There was a time I read that stuff, and I don't have a problem with people who do read those books. What's happening right now is a lot of people are reading those type of books.
Yeah, it's a quick fix.
Yeah, because, and the thing is, because a lot of our society is in real trouble. People are struggling. People don't know, what's going to happen next. They look at these books like, if I read this book, the monk who sold his Ferrari, maybe I'll find a way of, reading a book. I'll make enough money to have a monk to sell, my Ferrari to sell.
Yeah.
So this is what's happening. But also people are starting to read. I have friends of mine who I have a friend who used to work at Prestige books, and they told me they would run out of Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie's book every day. They had to keep like if they put the book on the shelves, by the end of the day the book is gone.
But I look at Chimamanda. I mean, she's way up there. I mean, at this point, I wouldn't. Would I be fine not calling her like an African writer in quotes? Because like right now she's a global writer. I mean, she's way out there.
Yeah, she's actually the most famous contemporary African writer today. But I'm giving an example of Chimamanda.
Yes.
People are buying books. Like I'm giving an example of Prestige books only.
Yeah.
In the last 3 months, Naivas has asked people to send books to them because they want to sell those books.
Actually, fun fact, I was in the CBD yesterday, and there's a shop where they used to sell shoes. I think that is now, Textbook Center have opened another shop right in the middle of the CBD. So I guess
Textbook Center
people are reading.
About 2 months ago, they made a call out for people who are self-published.
Yes.
If you're a self-published author, they are happy to take on your book and they won't buy, because normally in the writing industry, what they do is a sell or return basis. They'll put the book in the shelf. If it sells, they give you the money.
Yeah.
So there has been a movement right now. We just had a literary festival at the Alliance Française 2 weekends ago, and there was a lot of people with books there, and they were selling and buying books. So there is a movement. There is a number of people who are available. So the books are being bought. So the thing about people not reading is an urban myth.
Wow. Okay.
It's an urban myth based on what I've been seeing, based on actual facts. It's an urban myth.
So could I ask now the other question to reflect that? I mean, we just talked about Chimamanda, who people will read because she's like this global big name. I think the same way they would read, Paulo Coelho. I don't know if I've said that name correctly. The same way people used to read the Sidney Sheldons and the Stephen Kings. So the question is, are people now reading the books that we are writing? Do we have Kenyan writers who are making the mark, who you would say these are people who are worth reading and are being read?
So the Kenyan writers who are coming out right now, I'd say they're in 3 tiers. Okay, there's the tier which is on the same level as Yvonne, technical-wise. I'm sorry, as Chimamanda on the technique side. So they're writers as well as Chimamanda, and those there are 2 of them. We have Peter Kimani, and we have Yvonne Adhiambo.
Okay, take notes.
Okay, so Peter Kimani, he just came out with the Dance of the Jacaranda, and it's a book about the railroad of the first railroad.
Okay.
The Lunatic Express, that was the British.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and it's a historical fiction, and it's really good. It's just been, I mean, it's a New York Times notable book.
Wow. Okay.
It's been, it's been in that space. The second person is Yvonne Adhiambo. She wrote Dust, and she wrote Dust, which is also historical. And okay, it's a historical current. It goes back and forth.
Yeah.
And then she has Dragonfly Sea.
Oh, this one.
This is the one I was
Oh,
telling
this
you.
is okay.
Dragonfly Sea is about
I got it.
okay, Dragonfly Sea is about a young woman who discovers her Chinese heritage in the coast of Mombasa, and then she goes to China, and it's really good. If you have a chance, pick that up. There's another writer who sometimes we don't mention him, but he's also a very important writer. His name is Mukomo Wangugi.
Ah, okay.
Mukomo Wangugi has written two crime novels, Nairobi Heat and Killing Sahara.
This is Mukoma, son of Ngugi?
Yes.
Okay.
So he's done Killing Sahara and Nairobi Heat, and then his most recent one, not most. He had one which is called it was called Mrs. Shaw, but it's called now what? It was republished on the Continent, and that book is actually based. It's a fictional country, but if you read, you can see it's Kenya. So, and that's one of the few books that actually talk about the period when Kenya became free during the end of post-election. 2002 when Arab Moi left, and then we had a new.
Oh, was it repeal of 2A and all that?
Remember 2002?
Yeah.
When Arab Moi left and Kibaki became president.
Yes.
Yeah, it's the only book that actually has fiction about that. So those are the ones who I say are at another level of writing. Then the ones who are a decent level, they are not world class.
Yeah.
And they're building towards that. We have Kenyan Kombani.
Okay.
Kenyan Kombani has books like his first one was the Last Villains of Molo, the first one, and it's also the first book that had. It was the first book that actually talks about the 1997 clashes.
Wow.
1992 clashes.
Okay.
That happened in Molo and those parts of the country. And then he did the Den of Inequities, which was, which he says it's not about the Mongeki, which in fiction is not.
Yeah.
But it talks about a shadowy organization which is doing protection and criminal activities that is almost like Mongeki, but it's not Mongeki.
Where they smoke, there's fire.
Yes. So it's not Mungiki.
Yes.
And he actually did a most recent one about, he actually did a novella recently about gambling. So no, Kenyanjui is also getting there. And then there's Makena Maganjo. She had a book called South B's Finest.
South B's Finest?
Yeah, South B's Finest.
Oh, okay.
And we are doing an interview in South B, so
yeah, it just felt very appropriate.
Yeah, it's actually based on the book is about people who lived in South B in the 80s.
Okay.
And the lives that they had, the estate. It's really good. And and there are several others in that tier. So, but those are two I can think of immediately.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
then the third tier. Yeah. There's a lot of people who are coming out with self-published books. They go and they type out like maybe 50,000 words, and they look at it, and then they go to the printer and then print them off and say, this is my new book.
Okay. And
these books, a lot of them are not so good.
Tell us how you really feel.
No, a lot of them are not so good. I mean, it's a story I once told somebody, where I bought somebody's book a few years ago. And then I'm actually very happy I bought it because I could do whatever I want. And I went back home to read the book, and then I realized that it was badly written. It needed editing, and I actually pulled out my pen and I started like, no, this needs to be removed. This needs to go. And by page 8, I like, listen, I paid a book to enjoy my reading. I didn't pay a book to do an editing job. So there's a lot of those books which are coming right now. The quality needs to go much higher.
Yeah.
And those are the guys who actually have stories that need to be told. They need the publishing industry, but we don't have a publishing industry in this country. So that is the part of the problem.
But let me ask, I mean, we were talking earlier, you said that there was a time when, Kenya was the country where publishing was making sense, where everybody was looking at. Where did we go wrong?
In the 70s, we had in the 1970s, Kenya was producing books like crazy. I mean, it was the time we had, Ngugi was starting to really blow up on the world. Major Mwangi was there, David Mailu, we had Michere Mugo, we had Margaret Ogola, we had Athanath Odaga, we had Ngugi Mirei, who wrote a book with Ngugi Thiong'o. We had so many people who are producing good stories. Did I say Major Mwangi? Because that's a very important name.
Yeah, you actually did it.
Yeah, okay. So we had a lot of people who were producing in the 70s, and this helped because we had a publishing industry that functioned.
Yeah.
You could actually go with a book manuscript to a publisher, and then you'd refine it, and then you'd find a way of getting the book to the market after it's done the publishing process.
Yeah.
In the 1980s, our publishing industry was basically destroyed. People had we had a horrible dictatorship in the 80s that didn't allow anyone to that didn't allow any creative industries to thrive, and it applied to everything. It applied to music, it applied to publishing, it applied to visual art, it applied to all the creative industries were affected by this dictatorship.
Yeah.
Which is why dictators are not good. They're not good for the arts. And that was a period that people had to flee the country. You find Ngugi fled the country, Michere Mugo fled the country. People had to flee Nairobi and set up in other parts of the continent. Ngugi Mirei fled to Zimbabwe. And it became just very difficult to have a publishing industry that functioned. And when you have a publishing that doesn't function, it becomes very difficult to be a writer, because writers exist in every society. It's just that publishing ecosystems have to exist. And if the publishing ecosystem doesn't exist, writers have a problem. So that's part of the reason of what happened. So in the early 2000s, people like Binyavanga with Kwani were trying to revive that 70s space and trying to say we can do this, but they never really succeeded. Yeah.
Now, let me just take it probably just a bit bigger, because we've really talked about Kenya. And the thing is, you do have an Africa-wide blog. Where has this blog of yours taken you? I mean, by the time we're talking about you being in contact with the African writers and all that, where has this blog taken you on this African continent in the world? Imekupeleka wapi? Imekufikisha wapi? For that guy who just started a blog the other day and was like, man, 3 weeks in, I'm tired.
So when I started, I used to cover, because one of the main things I used to cover was literary events.
Yeah.
And I used to just cover Story Moja Festival. In 2014, I got on a bus, went to Kampala, and I covered the Writivism Festival.
Yeah.
But because of the work I was doing, some people started supporting me. They would give me a bit of money. And since then, I've been covering more stuff. In the last 5 years, I've been to, in the region, I've been to Somaliland. I went to Hargeisa Festival.
Okay.
It's actually the biggest festival in the region. I mean, thousands of people show up for this festival.
In Somaliland?
Yes. It's a beautiful festival. It's actually happening at the end of the
Who
month.
knew? Okay. Oh, this month?
Yeah, happening at the end of the month. If you're watching from Somaliland or Hargeisa, please go to the Hargeisa Festival. I've been to the Hargeisa Festival. I've been to the Writivism Festival. I've been to Story Moja, that's in East Africa. In Southern Africa, I've attended the Ake Festival. No, Abantu. Oh, I've been to the Abantu Festival. I'm actually the first Kenyan to attend the Abantu Festival.
For real?
Yeah, I was a delegate in 2016 when it started.
Where is that specifically?
Abantu Festival is in Soweto.
Is in Soweto in South Africa?
Yeah, Soweto,
okay.
Which is South Africa.
The Soweto of Soweto.
Yes. I'm in South Africa. I also attended the Rutanang Festival, which is a little town just outside of Soweto, outside of Johannesburg, called Tlokwe. So that's Southern Africa. In West Africa, I've been to the Ake Festival, which used to happen in a city called Abeokuta, but it moved to Lagos.
So the both cities are in Nigeria, right?
Yes, they're all in Nigeria. And I've been to that. I've been to the World Book Capital in Guinea, in Conakry, in Guinea. I've been to the Boca Festival in Gambia. Where else? Yeah, so those are the kind of some of the places I've been to on the continent. I've been to the Sharjah Festival in which is part of the UAE, and I've been to a couple of festivals in Germany. So I've been traveling a bit.
So the thing that I'm finding so interesting is that you know there's a time when we used to say that there was no excitement in certain careers, huh? and the fact that it opens so many doors for you, I guess, if you stick with it to the level that you've done. So I would ask something, because like on the other side of the camera we have my boy Nev there, who is currently in campus studying, he's doing his journalism studies. And for someone like him, knowing what you know now, what are a few tips you tell him to tell him, look, you don't need to take 5 or 10 or 15 years. There's a couple of things which I would advise you to start doing now that would actually set you apart and make you probably stand out better than, the way I've been doing it now.
First of all, you can't escape the 5 or 10 or 15 years.
You can't avoid it?
You can't avoid it.
Okay.
There's a story which says you have to do 10,000 hours of work in a discipline for you to master it.
Yes.
The secret now that I'm trying to bring is not that you can't avoid it. The thing is, if you start in campus now, you actually start earlier.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the sooner you start, the better.
The sooner you do your 10,000 hours, the better.
Okay.
I mean, I know guys who if you're starting like Nev, who's behind the camera.
Yeah.
If he can start doing whatever he's doing now, and then he focuses on it in the next 10, 15 years,
yes,
he will probably be the best in his age group.
Yes.
And he'll be doing it ahead of most people in the industry. Yeah, so that's number one. Start now. Don't wait until you're certainly okay. I'm gonna start doing this when I'm 30 or I'm 50. No, just start now. Yeah, and just start now with what you love doing.
Yes.
I mean, I know people who love blogs, and I know people who love podcasting. I know people who love YouTube channeling. I know people who love whatever way of presenting their content. The secret is you pick something which you love, which is challenging enough for you, and then get really good at it. And don't rush it. Because part of the problem, I said earlier in this interview, people would start in MySpace. And then within a short period, like 2 or 3 months, they realize there's no return on investment. Then they move on to the next thing. And then after those 3 months in that space, they move on to the next thing. So you find they'll do 2 or 3 different things in 1 year. Well, me, I'm honing my craft in one space for 5 years.
There's someone who said, do not fear the man who can throw 100 punches. Fear the man who throws one punch 100 times.
Yes. Yeah. So the secret is start now, and listen, but don't be afraid. Don't be shy to change, because I mean, listen. My first blog was about. I used to talk about drinking and partying, and I'd be talking about corporate stuff. But then I decided I wanted to do art stuff, and then it was still too big for me because, and this is another thing.
Yeah.
You have to pick something which is smaller, which you can expand on. I know a lot of people who they start their YouTube channel or they start their blog, and they'll be like, ask, what will your channel be about? Or what will your blog be about? And be like, so it's going to be about fashion, and it's going to be about, houses, cool houses, then lifestyle. Then you find that you're doing too many things.
Yeah.
You're doing nothing. Yeah, so you need to pick a little niche. So if you're saying fashion, I'd rather you say I'm doing African fashion, or I'm doing fashion, I'm doing men's fashion. Because if you pick one space, you can actually expand it nice. You can expand it. Say if I'm doing men's fashion, then I'll be like, okay, I'm doing African men's fashion. I can say, okay, what are men dressing in Nairobi? What are men dressing in Mogadishu? What are men dressing in Kampala? You can expand it.
Yes.
But if you say I'm doing fashion, you really don't know what you're doing. So it's actually more important to niche right now. And then you niche to what you want, then you expand within that niche.
So you become like an authority on that area that you have
exactly
decided to to go with.
Yes, I mean, I know of people who just say, I'm just gonna pick this little thing, and I'm gonna be the number one person talking about it. That's what you do. Don't worry about being the best guy in Nairobi. Say, what is it that I want to be best in the world in? Pick one thing. The internet has like 2 or 3 billion people. If you imagine that you get like your audience is maybe from 2 or 3 billion people, and let's say your interest is onions.
Yes.
Let's just, for example, you say, I really like onions. What can I cook with onions?
Yeah.
You will find that there are people from that 2 billion people on the internet, or 3 billion, at least 50,000 of them will be interested in onions.
Will be passionate about onions, man.
Yes, so you can be the onion chef. So I'm just giving an example.
I've got. Oh no, cool. Okay, interesting approach.
Yes.
So now I'm gonna ask you one question. Man, there's a lot of books. Have you read all these books, man?
I haven't read all of them. I keep reading. I'm adding. I keep reading. Part of the problem for me is that I am always adding books.
Oh.
So like when I'm reading, more books are added. So I have to keep up. So that's why it's difficult to read all of them.
In fact, man, guys, you can also see. Right now we have propped our light here on a bunch of books. I think we'll take a picture of this and post it so that you see the kind of books we're dealing with here. But this is definitely a writer's house, and I mean it reflects, man. So I think for me, let me just say thanks, man. It's like I said, we do not often have these discussions about the literature and everything, but man, this is a serious eye opener, and I really appreciate walking us through all of this. All right.
I'm grateful that you've had me. I mean, one of the things I've learned about the space I'm in is that, and I've actually become a sort of authority in my space. And I'm always looking for ways to collaborate and get the word about the space that I'm an authority. I want people to know about it. So I'm always happy to do this kind of thing where I'm telling people, yeah, this is a really exciting space. You don't need to worry about that you don't, there are people who are reading books. If you're going to write books, you need to, get your writing game on. And I do not recommend you send me your manuscript because and the reason is because I have so much work, I cannot read manuscripts. If I was to do manuscripts only, it would have to be a full-time job.
It would be a full-time expectation.
Yeah, so if the book is already done and it's, I'm happy to read the book, or just to, if the publisher is a good publisher, I'm happy to talk about it. So I'm grateful. Thanks for having me. And yeah.
All right, cool. Now we're in the month of July. It is cold as heck. There isn't very much to do. I guess this is perfect weather to curl up with a book. Yes. What are 3 books you'd recommend for me to read this month? I will try and read. I kid you not. It's been a minute.
Oh, man, there's so many. Okay, of course, I'll recommend Dragonfly Sea.
So this is pick number 1.
And this is because, we all talk about China and how China is taking over our lives and all that. And we don't understand that East Africa and China have had a long history together.
Yes, actually we have, yes.
And this is a very good way of looking at that history and saying, yeah, we have been doing it. Then I mentioned Peter Kimani, Dance of the Jacaranda. Now goes backwards. I don't know if I have it here. Let's have a quick look. Okay, I can't see it.
It actually even be one of these. Yeah, okay.
No, I can't see it. Dance of the Jacaranda is really good.
So Dance of the Jacarandas by Peter Kimani.
Yes.
The Dragonfly Sea by Yvonne Odhiambo Awor, author of Dust. And
then because you need light reading, I recommend McKenna Maganjo.
Okay.
South Bee's Finest.
South Bee's Finest.
Because it's just fun, man. You read this book and you're seeing people talking about, and this is like the 80s. Try and imagine in the 80s.
The 80s South Bee was pretty cool, man. I don't know what it is now, but back then it was.
No, I mean, like, I'll give you an example. Like, for instance, there's a shop which is just at the gate of of that area.
Yeah.
Where the shop's owner starts selling condoms. And then the whole estate people start discussing, now this guy is bringing us AIDS. So there's a meeting, people are discussing. Those kind
It's
of
a thing.
yeah, it becomes a thing. Why is he selling condoms? This person is going to bring us AIDS. Because in the mind at that time was condoms, it means you have AIDS or something like that. Yeah. So there are little things like those, or the dynamics around the way people used to do their things. So those are my recommendations. Sotheby's Finest, Dragonfly Sea, and Dance of the Jacaranda.
All right, cool. We're gonna post those names for you. Check them out, bro. Thanks so much. We appreciate, and we're looking forward to having more recommendations from you. I mean, I'm challenged. I'll read a little bit.
I mean, I actually post new books every once a week. I post new books. Today I only did Kenyan books because we're in Nairobi, and, Kenyans. But there's a lot of books coming out. Books are coming out like crazy from all over the continent. So I normally post the whole continent.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, but today I just posted Kenyans because
we'll get to Samadhi. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. So, guys, Radana Culture, tuko na James Murua, Africa's biggest literature blog. Bow!
Radana Culture.